Hello and welcome to Complexity Limit's Guide to the Mythic Stone Legion Generals encounter, written and produced by Crzypck in coordination with Complexity Limit, presented by Herman Miller. Just a quick note before we begin, this guide assumes you know the fight already on Heroic. As such, we will not be discussing or explaining the Heroic mechanics, we will assume you know them, and will exclusively be focused on the Mythic changes and strategy. If you need a refresher on the basic mechanics, please check out our Heroic guide on the channel. Okay, Stone Legion Generals. Let's start this with a warning. As of the time of writing and recording, this fight is a buggy mess. From ads falling through the floor.
He's a wheel.
Dude, he's eating a cycle.
What is that?
To players being unavoidably one-shot, to Wicked Blade going through the boss and double-ticking the entire raid, instantly wiping you.
Okay, what's going on?
What?
A lot of things are going wrong right now. This guide is written with the assumption that the bugs are either fixed or manageable, and you can just focus on the mechanics themselves. Hopefully, this is the case and Blizzard has addressed these issues by the time you're watching this. If not, buckle up because you're in for a wild ride on this fight. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the rest of the video. On Mythic, this encounter has received a number of mechanical changes. First and foremost, there's a new ad that'll spawn throughout most of the fight called the Stone Legion Skirmishers. These spawn in sets of 3, and their primary ability is to teleport behind random players, smack them, and apply a stack of Wicked Laceration. You'll recognize this as the dot from Wicked Blade. Additionally, when the Skirmishers reach 20% health, they turn into Stone Gale effigies and cause wind to blow the raid towards the edge of the platform. This can knock you off, and it increases in power based on how many Skirmishers are currently casting it. When a Skirmisher dies, its application of the wind ends. These Skirmishers will spawn at 13 seconds into a new phase, and then every 53 seconds. They do not spawn during the intermissions. The Goliaths have also had their Soul Taint effigy tweaked. It now reduces healing received by 20% per stack, gaining 1 stack per second and capping at 5. This means that after 5 seconds, your whole raid takes 0% healing. One other note on the Goliaths. They spawn at a set 25% health on whichever boss is active, so on pool at 75% and at 50%. Next up, Heartrend has been tweaked a bit. As in Heroic, when it's dispelled or expires, it'll turn into the Heart Hemorrhage, which deals significantly more damage but only lasts 6 seconds. On Mythic though, if you dispel Heartrend off of someone, you as the dispeller now also get a stack of Heart Hemorrhage. This is very impactful because on Mythic, the Heart Hemorrhage deals 10,000 damage per second. And you'll want to actually make sure you time dispelling the debuff so you can control when that stronger dot is up and have raid cooldowns ready. Gershol's Reverberating Eruption has some changes for you too. On Heroic, you have a hard cap of 3 simultaneous puddles on the ground. On Mythic, that hard cap is raised to 8. Fortunately, the increased damage taken debuff from soaking this only lasts 6 seconds on Mythic, so you can just assign the same players to soak the same circle every time. In addition to all of this, there's also another new ad that'll spawn during the intermissions called the Stone Legion Commandos. These drop from the sky and need to be tanked. When a commando reaches 20% health, it'll put an absorb shield on itself, absorbing 246,000 damage. You have 4 seconds to break this shield. If you don't, the commando explodes and the raid wipes. Oh, and these shields, they're immune to most AoE abilities. Okay, let's get into the strategy. In phase 1, you'll want to be positioned a bit off-center towards the entrance to the room. As your starting progression, you'll want to have markers down on the opposite side for Wicked Blade using the same positions as Heroic. Once your raid is consistently handling the Wicked Blade in phase 1 though, stop placing those markers. You'll need them elsewhere in phase 2. Crystallized should be brought in melee range. Anyone with a bleed stands in the Crystallized to remove it, and then everybody in the raid soaks the meteor. Drop a raid cooldown like AMZ or Barrier for every meteor. Oh, and you can actually skip the first meteor completely. Have the targeted player move about 10 yards from the boss. As soon as the Crystallized deals damage and stuns that target, have a priest life grip that player back to the group. Nobody should stand in the soak circle. By doing this, the meteor will still fall and it'll still hit the circle, but nobody's there to take damage from it. Shortly after the encounter begins, the first Goliath will spawn, and then immediately be followed by the first set of Skirmishers spawning. You'll actually want to kill the Skirmishers first, and after the winds end, then you can push the Goliath below 20% health. At 1 minute and 4 seconds into the fight, the second set of Skirmishers will spawn. Blow these up completely before you turn and start nuking the second Goliath. As far as the Heart Rends go, you can sort of cheese them if you have at least one Priest and one Resto Shaman. At the 40-second mark into the fight, before the second Skirmishers come, your Resto Shaman should drop an Ancestral Protection Totem. Then, you'll have the designated Priest cast Mass Dispel, which will remove all 4 Heart Rends from the affected players. This gives you a fairly clean time to deal with healing the 4 hemorrhages on the targeted players, and will place all 4 of the new dots onto that one priest that did the Mass Dispel. That priest will die instantly. Fortunately, that Ancestral Protection Totem will allow them to pop back up. You now successfully removed 4 heart hemorrhage debuffs that you don't have to heal. Wonderful. You'll actually want to do this again at the 2 minute and 10 second mark, and this time you'll likely need to use a battle res unless you have a second Resto Shaman. If you do have that second Resto Shaman, use APT again and pop that priest back up for free. Your goal in phase 1 is to push Call to 50% immediately following the third Crystallize, which occurs at 2 minutes and 25 seconds into the fight. You'll want to use that final Crystallize to ensure everybody's bleed stacks are cleared. You'll also want to make sure that any Skirmishers you've gotten are dead and gone by that point. Once Call does reach that 50% health mark, you'll go into the Intermission. On Mythic, you will not get Animal Orbs dropping around the room for you. Instead, they drop from the Commandos when they die. We found the easiest way to handle the beginning of this phase is for the raid to stack near the edge of the platform and focus down the Goliath as soon as possible. While the raid is burning the Goliath, the tank not holding said Goliath should be picking up the Commandos as they reach the floor. When the Goliath is low, bring all the Commandos on top of the Goliath, and your raid should just go Mongo AoE on everything. Even though the Absorb Shields are technically immune to most AoE effects, some abilities do still count. Notably, the extra bounce arrows from a Marksman Hunter's trick shots, as well as the Hunter Night Fae ability Wild Spirits, both do indeed deal damage to this shield. As such, any Marksman Hunters you have should blow all of their cooldowns at this point, True Shot and Wild Spirit, to help nuke down these Commandos as quickly as possible. When the Goliath and Commandos die, you'll want pre-assigned people to pick up the Anima Orbs. On Mythic, every time Anima is deposited to Prince Renathal in the back of the room, there's an AoE knockback in a 45-yard range of him. This is why we recommended being near the front of the room. You can outrange that knockback. To make depositing the Anima easier, put a Warlock gateway from where you're standing on the edge of the room, going towards Renathal in the back of the room. Your assigned orb carriers will go one by one down the gateway to drop off Anima to Renathal. Then they'll get knocked back and be pushed back towards the group. You'll need to deposit the Goliath's Anima Orb and a total of 7 Commando Anima Orbs to push out of the phase. Whenever a Commando that you're actively fighting reaches 20%, they'll throw up that Absorb Shield, so ensure everyone is hard focusing that Commando when the shield happens. As you're killing the 7th Commando, the whole raid should begin running towards the entrance of the room and stack in that front corner. When the last Anima Orb is deposited and the intermission ends, this positioning will cause the raid to be knocked back right into that wall that you're already standing on, ensuring the raid is safe and no one gets pushed off. Oh, and remember, throughout that intermission, do not forget to dodge the little red swirlies, and when the boss casts Wicked Blades, make sure that you move away from the raid for that. These are really easy ways for you to wipe the raid if you forget about either of those abilities. Now you move into phase 2 and fight Gershol. The ads continue spawning as they were in phase 1, so you'll want to try and avoid overlapping the Skirmisher winds with Crystallize or Reverberating Eruption. You will need to prepare for the wind overlapping with Seismic Upheaval, meaning dodging swirlies while being pushed back. This can be very dangerous, so we recommend using a weak aura that'll tell you which players are targeted by the Seismic Upheaval. The targets run to the right side, everyone else steps to the left to be safe. As far as the Reverberating Eruptions go, you should have 8 markers down along the front edge of the room. The first eruption gets placed on the marker closest to the entrance, and every subsequent eruption just goes down the line in order. For soaking, you can just assign one person to soak each marker every time, with a couple of assigned backups. We'll include a weak aura that helps track this. Once you get Gershol to 50%, you'll enter intermission number 2. Handle this one much the same as you did in Intermission 1. Wait until there's 3 or 4 Commandos, then have the Hunters blow cooldowns and explode them. Use the Demonic Gateway again to fling people one by one into Renethal, have them knock back, and then send the next person on their merry way. As Commando 7 dies, move to the edge of the room opposite the entrance, and have the raid knocked back into the wall on that far side. As soon as the knockback ends, Call joins the fight again, and you're now in an all-out race. Pop Lust and just start nuking as hard as you possibly can. Wicked Blade, Heartrend, Reverberating Eruption, Seismic Upheaval, and Crystallize all continue happening in this phase and need to be handled as you have been. Eruptions start to get super dicey by this point, as you'll likely have all 8 Soak Circles. You'll want to tank the bosses in the phase 1 positioning, and handle the Wicked Blades using those phase 1 locations. No more adds are going to spawn in this phase, so you can focus entirely on the bosses. When Heartrend goes out, have your priest friend mass dispel again and sacrifice them. Make sure you time this dispel to not overlap with Seismic Upheaval or Reverberating Eruption, as healing through the 4 dots while everyone is moving is very difficult. Keep nuking, handle the mechanics, pray RNG doesn't screw you, and you will get to destroy these bosses. Thank God, it's time to move on. Let's go do Nathria. He's a lot more fun than this. Thanks for checking out our video. Now that you know how to kill the boss, be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel for the rest of our guides, kill videos, and a whole lot more.